US Congress permanently lifts sanctions on Syria. And Australia to introduce laws on hate speech after Bondi shooting. Good afternoon, Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Brennan Paul. We begin the story with local news. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to attend an ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting scheduled to be held in Kuala Lumpur on 22nd December. It is Malaysia and ASEAN-initiated effort aimed at easing tensions and preventing further escalation along the Thailand-Cambodia border. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the proposed meeting would enable ASEAN to deliberate collectively, establishing the facts on the ground and intensify efforts to persuade both parties to halt frontline offensives.
We are appealing to them to immediately stop these frontline offensives and, if possible, immediate ceasefire. Often they don't like the term ceasefire because it would connote their agreement. So if you look at my statement, I said, I urge the parties to observe these truths.
The Premier said the decision to convene the meeting followed ongoing consultations with the Prime Ministers of Thailand and Cambodia. The collective views of ASEAN foreign ministers would be crucial in persuading both parties to first observe a cessation of hostilities before moving on to discussions on mid-term and long-term parameters for an amicable settlement. The US Congress has permanently ended sanctions imposed on Syria under ousted leader Bashar al-Assad, paving the way for the return of investments to the war-ravaged nation. President Donald Trump had already twice suspended the implementation of sanctions in response to pleas from Saudi Arabia and Turkey, allies of the new government headed by Ahmed al-Shara. But Shara had sought a permanent end to the sanctions, fearing that so long as the measures remain on the books, they would deter businesses wary of legal risks in the world's largest economy. The Senate voted 77-20 in favor of repealing the 2019 Caesar Act, and this measure is expected to be signed by Trump. The Caesar Act severely restricted investments and cut off Syria from the international banking system. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese today said the government would seek to introduce new legislation to crack down on hate after gunmen opened fire at an event in Sydney on Sunday, killing 15. The alleged father and son gunmen opened fire as hundreds of people celebrated Hanukkah on Sydney's famous Bondi Beach in an attack inspired by radical insurgents that shocked the nation. Albanese told newsmen that the government will seek to introduce legislations that makes it easier to charge people promoting hate speech and violence, as well as increase penalties and develop a regime for targeting organizations whose leaders engage in hate speech.
Today I'm announcing a significant number of additional actions to build on the plan. Firstly, the Attorney-General and Minister for Home Affairs will develop a package of legislative reforms to crack down on those who spread hate, division and radicalisation.
Police allege the attack was carried out by Sajid Akram, aged 50, and his 24-year-old son, Naveed. Sajid was shot dead by police at the scene, while Naveed Akram was charged with 59 offences on Wednesday after waking from a coma, including murder and terror charges. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Abdul Rahman Al Thani said a proposed stabilization force to be deployed in Gaza under a ceasefire deal should not protect one side over another. Speaking after meetings in Washington with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and members of the American Congress, Sheikh Mohammed said Qatar raised concerns over repeated ceasefire violations in Gaza. He warned that such breaches place mediators in an embarrassing position and could derail the ceasefire entirely. He added Qatar does not want a stabilization force in Gaza that serves to protect one party at the expense of another. The Prime Minister also said he agrees with Rubio to double efforts to reach the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. He noted that preparations are underway for a meeting between mediators tomorrow to develop a clear framework for transitioning to the next stage. Sheikh Mohammed also underscored that the humanitarian situation in Gaza featured prominently in discussions with congressional members.
Padamkan komputer untuk lebih penjimatan.
The United Nations, UN, and aid groups warn that humanitarian operations in the Palestinian territories, particularly Gaza, are at risk of collapse if Israel does not lift impediments that include an arbitrary and highly politicized registration process. Dozens of international aid groups face deregistration by 31 December, which then means they have to close operations within 60 days. The UN and aid groups said the deregistration will have a catastrophic impact on access to essential and basic services in Gaza. They said the agencies run or support the majority of field hospitals, primary healthcare centers, emergency shelter responses, water and sanitation services, nutrition stabilization centers, and critical mine action activities. While some international aid groups have been registered under the system that was introduced in March, the ongoing re-registration process and other arbitrary hindrances to humanitarian operations have left essential supplies stuck outside of Gaza and unable to reach people in need. The European Parliament has approved the European Union's EU plan to phase out Russian gas imports by late 2027, clearing the penultimate legal hurdle before the law ban comes a law. The EU agreed earlier this month on legislation to cut ties with Europe's former top gas supplier, Russia, having vowed to do so after Moscow's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Lawmakers voted 500 in favour, 120 against, and 32 abstained. The ban still requires formal approval by EU ministers, expected early next year. Officials expect countries to endorse the deal without changes. The law is designed to be approved by a reinforced majority of countries, allowing it to overcome opposition from Hungary and Slovakia, who want to maintain close ties with Russia. Under the agreement, the EU will halt Russian liquefied natural gas imports by the end of next year and pipeline gas by the end of September 2027. As of October, Russia accounted for 12% of EU gas imports, down from 45% before its invasion of Ukraine. Venezuela struck a defiant note, insisting its crude oil exports are not impacted by U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a potentially crippling blockade on sanctioned oil tankers. Trump's declaration marked a new escalation in his campaign of military and economic pressure on Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela, which has the world's largest proven oil reserves, shrugged off the threat of more pain, insisting it is proceeding with business and use as usual. State oil company Petróleos de Venezuela said exports operations for crude and byproducts continue normally, with oil tankers continuing to sail with full security. However, Trump reiterated that U.S. forces would not allow related vessels going into and out of Venezuela. He accused Venezuela of taking all of energy rights and oil from the U.S. Up next, Germany approves 50 billion euros in military purchases. Stay tuned. German lawmakers approved about 50 billion euros in military purchases as Berlin accelerates defense spending in the face of Russian threats and signs of weakening security commitments from Washington. The extensive lists of procurements range from missiles to artillery, torpedoes, armored vehicles, satellite systems and new uniforms. Officials said the new purchases, green-lighted by Parliament's Budget Committee, mean a historic number of defence acquisitions have been approved this year, worth nearly 83 billion euros. The Defence Ministry said Germany is sending a signal to the NATO alliance and its partners. It added Germany is fulfilling its obligations to the alliance and accepting its responsibility for security and peace in Europe. The defence budget for this year had already been laid out by the latest purchases, had to be approved by Parliament's Budget Committee. This is in line with rules that individual acquisitions over 25 million euros must be signed off by members of Parliament. European Union EU plans to seal a trade deal with South American bloc Mercosur. This week were thrown into disarray after Italy joined fellow heavyweight France in seeking a delay. The last mile upset drew a stern rebuke from Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who told his European Union partners the time to close the deal is now or never.
No dia 19. E eu agora estou sabendo que eles não vão conseguir aprovar. Está difícil, porque a Itália e a França não querem fazer por problemas políticos internos. E eu já avisei para eles, se a gente não fizer agora, o Brasil não fará mais acordo enquanto eu for presidente.
20 years in the making, the pact to create the world's biggest free trade area is backed by Germany and many of the EU's 27 nations, fearing negative fallout for its agricultural sector. France has long been a holdout but had failed to muster enough support to block the accord. However, with just days to go for the deal to be signed by Mercosur partners, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni broke cover and said Rome is also not ready. Meloni said Italy does not intend to oppose the agreement as a whole and is confident the conditions will be met for Rome to sign at the start of next year. The U.S. Senate has approved President Donald Trump's re-nomination of billionaire Jared Isaacman to head NASA following months of backtracking and uncertainty over the space agency's future. The 42-year-old businessman made his fortune in online payment processing and has a personal passion for space. He will take over as NASA administrator at a sensitive time when the agency faces major budget cuts and pressure to travel to the moon again and eventually reach Mars. During his second confirmation hearing in December, Isaacman pledged he would ensure the success of the Artemis lunar exploration program that began in 2017. The program, however, has faced numerous delays and experts warned in September that the lunar lander developed by Elon Musk's SpaceX might not be ready in time. Oil and gas major BP said it had appointed Meg O'Neill, the head of Australia's Woodside Energy, as its Chief Executive Officer, CEO, effective 1st April 2026. After an abrupt exit by Murray Auchincloss, O'Neill will become BP's first CEO appointed from outside the company and the first woman to head any of the world's top 5 oil majors. Her surprise appointment is a sign that the British oil major is seeking a renewed push to improve its business after its shares and earnings have for years lagged behind competitors like ExxonMobil and Shell. The company embarked on a major strategy shift earlier this year, slashing billions in planned renewable energy initiatives and shifting its focus back to traditional oil and gas. O'Neill, who has headed Woodside since 2021, previously spent 23 years at ExxonMobil. BP's Executive Vice President, Carol Howell, will serve as interim CEO until O'Neill assumes the position. Auchincloss will depart the company on Thursday. The company had not publicly announced a search process for his successor before it flagged his departure late Wednesday evening. US company Meta is implementing a universal system for verifying the age of its platform users in response to the global spread of relevant state laws. The company's global head of safety, Antigone Davis, said around the world, different countries have different age assurance systems that they want companies like Meta to utilize. She added right now the market itself has a lot of different variations, so Meta is trying to take a comprehensive approach. The company is collaborating with Singaporean tech firm KID to integrate the H-Key technology into its mobile applications and plans to launch it in many countries next year. H-Key technology works similarly to passkey technology, which uses a smartphone's built-in facial recognition or fingerprint scan as an alternative way to log into an app instead of passwords. Passkeys are supposed and supported by all major computer and smartphone operating systems as well as web browsers.
Tutup tingkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat.
A heavy smog covered New Delhi on Wednesday's morning as the Air Quality Index AQI in India's capital remained alarmingly high. It, however, recorded a marginal improvement later in the day with AQI of 328 as against 377 the previous day, remaining in the very poor category even as smog blanketed the national capital. Authorities rolled out strict measures on Wednesday in an attempt to curb pollution, including a ban on vehicles not compliant with latest emission control norms and regulating attendance in private and government offices. The AQI in the Delhi region, home to 30 million people, has been in the severe category for the past few days, often crossing the 450 mark. In addition, shallow fog in parts of the city worsened visibility that affected flights, trains, suspend construction and impose hybrid schooling. Staff at the Louvre Museum voted to extend their strike for a second day to demand better working conditions and maintenance at the Paris landmark. The management was able to open only a limited number of rooms to the public. The labour dispute at the world's most visited museum has added to the woes of the institution 2 months after a spectacular robbery. After being closed by strike action on Monday and for a weekly day off on Tuesday, hundreds of visitors queued up yesterday hoping to see the Louvre's treasures. As union activists blocked the main entrance and staff voted in favour of continuing the strike, patience wore thin, with some members of the crowd booing and whistling. At around midday, the management announced that it would open up some of the museum's 400 rooms, notably those containing its best-known works. Thousands of Hondurans attend a rally in support of the ruling party after President Xiomara Castro claimed there was an electoral coup being plotted against her Libre party. The outgoing president, whose party's candidate is widely trailing 2 right-wing presidential nominees in the vote count, has accused US President Donald Trump of interference after he endorsed the rival. Castro has also accused election authorities of manipulation amid a delayed vote count that has yet to declare a presidential winner. A special manual recount of some votes was still not underway on Wednesday amid protests that prevented electoral staff from working and calls by the ruling party for a review of every single vote. The special recount, which could flip the results shown by the machine count from the 30th November election, had been set to begin late last week, after nearly 2 weeks of delays and disruptions. With nearly 100% of the tally sheets processed, In the regular count by Wednesday, opposition National Party candidate Nazri Asfura maintained the lead with more than 43,000 votes over Centri's Liberal Party candidate Salvador Nasrallah. FIFA agree 50% rise in prize money for 2026 World Cup. Stay tuned.
Sukan Sea Thailand 2025. Segala aksi, pencapaian, detik-detik kemenangan.
Tanungkan dari itu dia.
Dan kemas kini semasa, kutipan pingat keseluruhan terus dibawakan untuk anda sepanjang 10 hingga 19 Disember dalam Laporan Harian Pagi, 10 pagi, Laporan Harian Petang, 3 petang, Laporan Harian Malam, 8 malam, serta Sorotan Harian 11.30 minit malam di saluran OK dan Sukan RTM.
Indonesia masih lagi mengawal permainan. Adas naik untuk melakukan blocking. Jaringan penyama daripada Malaysia.
Juga boleh disaksikan secara penstreaman langsung di RTM Click.
We begin with developments at the SEA Games Thailand 2025. The national contingent now needs just 8 more medals to reach the overall target of 200 medals at this edition of the Games. Malaysia has already collected 41 gold medals as of yesterday, surpassing the 34 gold medals won in Cambodia 2023. Overall, the Malaysian contingent has now amassed a total of 192 medals, with 3 days remaining before the biennial games come to a close. The national contingent appears to be on the right track to achieve its target. Today, several Malaysian athletes will continue their campaigns in the finals. These include the men's individual and team compound archery events. In addition, sports such as diving, shooting and track cycling also present strong opportunities for more medals. The focus is also on the football bronze medal playoff, which will see the Harimau Muda squad face the Philippines at the Raja Mangkala National Stadium. On a related note, the Malaysian contingent also shone on Thai soil yesterday, successfully winning 11 gold medals. Among the events contributing gold were Pencak Silat, Muay Thai, squash, cricket, shooting, netball, and esports. The Silat camp delivered 2 gold medals through Muhammad Izul Irfan in the men's Class D after a 57-50 victory over host athlete Perapon Mitasan. Meanwhile, Umi Mashita produced a convincing performance to claim the women's Class C title after defeating Anuntaya Niumpan 104-88 in the final. In Muay Thai, the national camp secured 3 gold medals after overcoming 3 host representatives. Young sensation Muhammad Mikhail Ghazali Zulfika, better known as Mickey, topped the under 55 kg category, defeating Sirilun Supakon 29-28 at the Lumpini Boxing Stadium. Also impressing was Wasov Rumijan, who beat Tongchai Hwanak 29-28 in the under 54 kg final. Yan Jiachi added another goal for the nation in the Y Crew event after defeating world champion Tongdeng Tanawan. At the shooting range, young national shooter Gan Chenjia captured gold in the women's 50-meter rifle 3 positions event with a score of 451.7 points, which also set a new SEA Games record. The national cricket team wrapped up their campaign in style by winning the 2010 event after defeating Indonesia, completing a double triumph following their 22 goal last week. Dominance was also continued by the national netball team, who secured a SEA Games gold hat-trick after beating Singapore 52-49. The national women's mobile legends Bang Bang squad also claimed gold after edging the Philippines 4-3 in the final. This brings Malaysia's overall gold medal tally to 41, placing the nation 5th in the standings so far. And in football, the winners of the 2026 World Cup will receive $50 million in prize money as part of a record financial contribution for the tournament from FIFA. In total, World Cup prize fund of $655 million represents an increase of almost 50% from the $440 million distributed to teams taking part in the last tournament in Qatar in 2022.
A massive increase, 50% more for all the member associations, minimum of 9 million for the participation, plus 1.5 million preparation money, so 10.5 million for every member association participating in the World Cup, and the winner gets $50 million, an increase of 50% compared to the World Cup 2022 in Qatar. So everyone will be excited to win the World Cup.
The Argentine Football Association received $42 million in prize money after Lionel Messi inspired them to glory 3 years ago, when they won on penalties in a final against France. France received $30 million for their run to the final. This time, the beaten finalists will pocket $33 million, with the third-place finishers collecting $29 million and the other defeated semi-finalists getting $27 million. Teams eliminated in the group phase will receive $9 million, while all 48 participating nations will get an additional $1.5 million to cover preparation costs. Former Uruguay striker Luis Suarez has signed a contract with Inter Miami for the upcoming season. Inter Miami said Suarez signs a new contract after recently concluding the historic 2025 season for what was his second year at the club. The club said the striker's vast experience and leadership were crucial as Inter Miami clinched its third and fourth titles by winning the Eastern Conference Championship and the MLS Cup, while also excelling on the international stage with a historic run to the round of 16 at the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Suarez made a total of 50 appearances across all competitions this year, scoring 17 goals and dishing out 17 assists for a total of 34 goal contributions. Suarez, who turns 39 in January, joined Lionel Messi's outfit last year before helping the club to the 2025 MLS Cup and Eastern Conference title. The former Barcelona, Liverpool and Atletico Madrid attacker won the Champions League, La Liga and the League Cup during his time in Europe. That's it from us. In our top story, U.S. Congress permanently lifts sanctions on Syria. Malaysia Tonight comes on at 8:30 p.m. this evening on TV1 and MyTV's Berita RTM news channel. Now we leave you with a video trailer of Avatar, Fire and Ash, which will hit cinemas today. Till then, I'm Brendan Paul. Thanks for watching and take care.
The strength of the ancestors is here.
And we will find another way.